As my sister's wedding was approaching and everyone was shopping, my sister pushed me aside and said, "You are not invited to the wedding, goodbye, loser." I confronted my parents and they laughed in my face saying, "Well, she's right, now let us do the shopping." Dad added, "Some people just don't fit into important family events." I replied, "Perfect, then I'll remove my payments from the account." They kept joking in the group chat about my exclusion, but by morning, everything had changed. My name is Rachel, and I'm 28 years old. My sister Madison is 25, and she's always been the golden child in our family. Beautiful, charming, and somehow capable of getting whatever she wanted from our parents without lifting a finger. I was the responsible one, the one who worked hard, saved money, and tried to keep the peace. Growing up, I learned early that my role was to fade into the background while Madison sparkled. Our mother, Patricia, would spend hours doing Madison's hair before school while I braided my own. Our father, Kenneth, attended every single one of Madison's dance recitals but somehow missed most of my academic award ceremonies because of work. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was stronger for being independent. The dynamic only got worse as we became adults. Madison went to college for 2 years before dropping out to pursue her dream of becoming an influencer. Our parents supported this decision wholeheartedly, even though her follower count never broke 5,000. Meanwhile, I put myself through state college while working 2 jobs, graduated with honors, and landed a solid position at a marketing firm. Here's where things get complicated. 3 years ago, our parents hit financial trouble. Dad's business partner embezzled funds, and they lost almost everything. Their savings evaporated, their credit tanked, and they were facing foreclosure on the house they'd lived in for 30 years. I was the only one in a position to help. I sat down with them and worked out an arrangement. I would pay their mortgage, cover their insurance, and help with major bills. The monthly amount came to around $4,000, which was a significant chunk of my salary, but I loved them. They were my parents, and family helps family, right? Madison was living with her boyfriend Tyler at the time, working part-time at a boutique and still chasing her influencer dreams. She contributed nothing to our parents' situation, but nobody expected her to. That was just Madison being Madison. Over the next 3 years, I paid over $140,000 to keep my parents afloat. I drove a 10-year-old Honda while Madison got a new Audi from Tyler. I lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment while she moved into a trendy loft downtown. I packed lunches for work while she posted pictures of bottomless brunches every weekend. Did I resent it? Sometimes. But mostly I just accepted it as the way things were. I was the capable one, the reliable one, the one who could handle responsibility. Madison was the special one who needed to be protected and pampered. Then, 6 months ago, Tyler proposed. Our parents were ecstatic, treating it like the social event of the century. Never mind that I'd been in a committed relationship with my boyfriend Eric for 4 years. Never mind that Eric and I had discussed marriage and were building a life together. Madison was getting married and suddenly nothing else mattered. The wedding planning took over every family gathering. Mom would call me 3 times a week to discuss flower arrangements, venue options, and dress fittings. Dad started a special savings account for the wedding, though I never quite understood where that money was coming from considering I was still paying all their major bills. I was genuinely happy for Madison at first. Despite everything, she was my little sister, and I wanted her to have a beautiful wedding. I offered to help with planning, suggested some vendors I knew through my marketing connections, and even started thinking about what I'd wear as a bridesmaid. But as the months went on, something felt off. Madison never asked me to be a bridesmaid. Every time I brought up the wedding, she'd change the subject or give vague answers. When I asked Mom about bridesmaid dress shopping, she'd say they hadn't gotten to that yet. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Saturday morning in March. Mom had organized a shopping trip for the bridesmaids to find their dresses. I showed up at the bridal boutique downtown, excited to finally be included in the wedding activities. Eric had encouraged me to take the day for myself, to enjoy time with my family. I walked into the boutique and saw Mom, Madison, and 4 of Madison's friends clustered around a display of champagne-colored dresses. They were laughing and taking pictures, having mimosas even though it was barely 11 in the morning. "Hey, everyone," I called out, walking over with a smile. The laughter stopped. Madison turned to look at me, and her expression was cold in a way I'd never seen before. She put down her mimosa and walked straight toward me, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice flat. "What do you mean?" "Mom said you were shopping for bridesmaid dresses today. I'm here to find mine." Madison's friends exchanged glances. One of them, a girl named Brittany who I'd never liked, actually snickered. "Rachel, seriously?" Madison crossed her arms. "Why would you think you're a bridesmaid?" The question hit me like a slap. "Because I'm your sister? That doesn't mean you're automatically in my wedding party." She looked me up and down with an expression I can only describe as contempt. "Besides, you don't really fit the aesthetic I'm going for." I felt my face burning. "Madison, what are you talking about? Can we discuss this privately?" "There's nothing to discuss." She turned back toward her friends, effectively dismissing me. "You're not invited to the wedding. Goodbye, loser." The words echoed in the high-ceilinged boutique. Her friends giggled, and I stood there frozen, unable to process what I just heard. Madison. Mom's voice made me think she was going to defend me, that surely our mother wouldn't let this stand. I turned to her hopefully. But Mom just looked annoyed. Rachel, you're making a scene. Let us finish our shopping. Are you serious right now? My voice came out higher than I intended. Did you both hear what she just said? She uninvited me to the wedding. Dad emerged from wherever he'd been looking at something, walking over with his phone in his hand. What's all the commotion? She says I'm not invited to Madison's wedding. My father actually laughed. He laughed right in my face, and the sound of it felt like something breaking inside my chest. Well, she's right, Dad said, shrugging. Now let us do the shopping. You're interrupting an important day. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline for someone to say they were joking. But everyone just looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to leave. Some people just don't fit into important family events, Dad added, turning back to his phone. No offense, sweetheart, but Madison's wedding is going to be photographed extensively. She wants a certain look. The implication was clear. I wasn't pretty enough, polished enough, or special enough to be in my own sister's wedding photos. Something inside me shifted in that moment. 3 years of sacrificing my own financial security, of putting my life on hold, of accepting second place to Madison in everything, it all crystallized into perfect clarity. Perfect, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. Then I'll remove my payments from the account. The boutique went quiet. Madison turned back around, her expression shifting from smug to confused. What payments? Brittany asked. Mom's face had gone pale. Rachel, don't be dramatic. What payments? I repeated, looking at Madison. The $4,000 I pay every single month to cover Mom and Dad's mortgage, their insurance, their car payments, and their utilities. Those payments. Madison's eyes went wide. What are you talking about? You didn't know? I looked at our parents. You didn't tell her that the only reason you still have a house is because I've been paying for it for the past 3 years? Dad stepped forward, his jaw tight. Rachel Elizabeth, this is neither the time nor the place. No, I think it's the perfect time. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning it so Madison could see the recurring transfers. See these? Every month, $4,000 goes to Mom and Dad's joint account. That's what's been keeping them from losing the house. Madison snatched my phone, scrolling through the transactions. Her face went through several emotions, disbelief, shock, and finally anger. Mom? Is this true? We can discuss this at home, Mom said tightly. $144,000 over 3 years, I said clearly. And I've been happy to do it because I love you both and I wanted to help. But I'm not going to continue funding a family that doesn't want me at their celebrations. I took my phone back from Madison and pulled up my bank's website. Right there, in front of all of them, I canceled the automatic transfers scheduled for the next week. What are you doing? Dad's voice had an edge of panic now. Removing myself from your family events, I said, echoing his words back to him. Since I don't fit in at important occasions, I won't fit in at your mortgage payments either. I walked out of that boutique with my head high, but I didn't make it to my car before the tears started. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, crying so hard I thought I might throw up. My whole body shook with the force of it, years of swallowed disappointments finally erupting. A woman walking to her car stopped and asked if I was okay, and I couldn't even answer her. I just nodded and waved her away, humiliated to be falling apart in public. When I finally caught my breath enough to dial, Eric answered on the first ring. I could barely get the words out. Madison said, I'm not invited. I'm on my way, he said immediately. Send me your location. Don't drive. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the parking lot in his truck. He found me still sitting in my car, mascara streaked down my face, staring at nothing. He opened my door and crouched down beside me. Tell me everything, he said gently. So I did. I told him about Madison's cold dismissal, about Brittany's snicker, about Mom's annoyed expression and Dad's laugh. About the comment that I didn't fit the aesthetic, the implication clear as crystal. About canceling the payments right there in front of them. Eric listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I'm proud of you, he finally said. For what? For getting humiliated by my own family? For standing up for yourself. For not letting them treat you like garbage anymore. He took my hand. Rachel, I've watched you sacrifice yourself for them for 3 years. I've seen you stress about making those payments, seen you deny yourself things you wanted because you were supporting them. And they've never once appreciated it. Never once thanked you properly or acknowledged what you were giving up. But they're my family. Family doesn't treat you like this. Family doesn't laugh in your face when you're hurting. His voice was fierce. You know what my mom said when I told her about your situation? She said any parent should be grateful to have a daughter like you. She said if she ever needed help, she'd be on her knees thanking you every single day. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. Eric pulled me into a hug, and I cried into his shoulder while he rubbed my back and told me it would be okay. He drove my car home while I sat in the passenger seat, occasionally breaking into fresh sobs. At home, he made me tea and wrapped me in a blanket on the couch. He didn't try to fix it or tell me it wasn't that bad. He just sat with me in the pain of it. That evening, my phone started blowing up. Text after text came through the family group chat. Madison had created it months ago for wedding planning, and I'd been muted most of the time because the constant notifications about flowers and centerpieces had gotten overwhelming. Madison, can you believe Rachel made a scene at the boutique today? So embarrassing. Dad, your sister always did have a flair for drama. Mom, I'm just glad we got the shopping done. Those dresses are going to look beautiful. Madison, right? And without Rachel, they're bringing down the vibe. Brittany, who had somehow been added to our family chat, I still can't believe she thought she was invited, lol. Madison, I know. Like, read the room, Rachel. Dad, some people just can't accept their place in life. We tried to be gentle about it. Mom, well, at least it's done now. Let's focus on the positive. Only 3 months until the big day. I read every message, each one feeling like another small cut. But something else was building inside me too. Anger. Pure, clarifying anger. I scrolled up through the group chat history, looking at months of wedding planning messages. Discussions about venue options, debates over flower arrangements, polls about menu choices. I participated in all of it, offering suggestions, voting in polls, even sending links to vendors I knew through work. And the whole time, they'd known I wasn't invited. The deception was almost worse than the exclusion itself. They'd let me think I was part of this, let me invest emotional energy into Madison's big day, all while planning to shut me out. I found a message I'd sent 2 months earlier. What about including a signature cocktail at the reception? I saw this amazing thing at a colleague's wedding where they had a custom drink named after the couple. Could be fun. Madison's response, that's such a good idea. Tyler would love that. Mom had sent a string of heart emojis. Dad had replied with a thumbs up. All of them acting like I'd be there to see it. All of them lying by omission. I kept scrolling, finding more examples. Messages where I'd offered to help with DIY decorations, where I'd suggested makeup artists, where I'd asked about the timeline for the rehearsal dinner. Every single time, they'd engaged with me like I was part of the wedding party. Like I mattered. My hands were trembling as I screenshotted several of these exchanges. I wasn't sure why I was documenting them, maybe for my own validation, proof that I wasn't crazy, that I had every right to feel betrayed. Eric held me while I cried, and then he did something I didn't expect. He took my phone and responded to the group chat. Eric, this is Eric, Rachel's boyfriend. I'm looking at these messages, and I'm honestly disgusted. You're treating her like garbage after she's been supporting you financially for years. She deserves so much better than this family. There was a long pause, and then the messages started again. Dad, Eric, this is a family matter. Please stay out of it. Eric, Rachel is my family. And she's shown you more loyalty than any of you deserve. Madison, oh please. She's not some hero. She has a good job, she can afford to help. I grabbed my phone from Eric. My fingers flew across the keyboard before I could second-guess myself. Me, I can afford to help, Madison. But here's something you clearly don't understand, just because I can doesn't mean I should. Especially not for people who think I'm not good enough to attend their wedding. Mom, Rachel, sweetheart, you're overreacting. Madison just wanted a small, intimate bridal party. Me, Mom, I'm not even invited as a guest. And you all knew this. You've known for months while letting me participate in planning discussions. You let me think I was included. Madison, well maybe if you weren't so sensitive, you could have been invited. The victim blaming was the final straw. Me, you know what? This conversation is over. Enjoy your wedding. Enjoy your perfect aesthetic. And enjoy figuring out how to pay for everything without my money. Eric, gladly. Rachel and I are going to bed. Maybe by morning, you'll realize what you've lost. He muted the chat and handed my phone back to me. They don't deserve you, he said simply. But sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake thinking about all the ways I'd been diminished over the years. About the birthday when I'd turned 25 and my parents had taken Madison out to an expensive dinner for her 22nd birthday the week before, then given me a gift card to Target for mine. About the Christmas when Madison got a designer purse and I got a generic candle set. About the time I'd landed a major promotion at work and called to tell them, only to have the conversation immediately pivot to Madison's latest Instagram post going viral with 200 likes. Small things. Death by 1,000 cuts. And I'd accepted all of it because I'd convinced myself that being the strong, independent daughter was better than being needy. That not requiring validation made me superior somehow. But it didn't. It just made me lonely. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about it every family dinner where Madison was the center of attention, every holiday where I bought thoughtful gifts while receiving generic gift cards in return, every time I'd been overlooked or dismissed. I told myself it was fine, that I was okay with being the responsible, invisible daughter. But I wasn't okay. I hadn't been okay for a very long time. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and went to my laptop. I opened my spreadsheet. Yes, I'd been keeping a detailed record of every payment I'd made to my parents. Every mortgage payment, every insurance premium, every utility bill, every emergency car repair, and that one time I'd paid for Mom's dental surgery. I documented everything because that's the kind of person I am. Organized. Responsible. Thorough. The total was actually higher than I'd set at the boutique. With additional emergency payments beyond the regular monthly amount, I'd given them $151,000. I exported the spreadsheet to a PDF and saved it. Then I drafted an email to my parents with the subject line, Financial Arrangement Termination. In it, I outlined every payment I'd made, thanked them for allowing me to help during their time of need, and formally notified them that all financial support would cease immediately. I explained that I would be reallocating those funds toward my own future, possibly a down payment on a house with Eric. I didn't send it yet. I wanted to see if they'd reach out to apologize, to recognize what they'd done. I wanted to give them a chance to make it right. The next morning, I checked the family group chat. Madison, so I just got our final headcount for the venue. 147 guests. Mom, that's wonderful, honey. Such an intimate but elegant number. Dad, did you finalize the seating chart? Madison, yes. Tyler's family is at the front tables, then our friends, then extended family. Everyone important is accounted for. Brittany, can't wait. It's going to be the wedding of the year. Mom, I'm just so proud of you, Madison. You've planned everything so beautifully. Not a single mention of yesterday. Not one acknowledgement of what had happened at the boutique or what Eric had said. They were just continuing on as if I didn't exist. That's when I sent the email. Within an hour, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Then Dad called. Voicemail. Then Madison. Voicemail. The voicemails started coming in. I sat at my kitchen table with Eric and listened to them on speaker. Mom's first message, Rachel, honey, we need to talk. Please call me back. This is serious. Dad's message, Rachel, I got your email. Let's discuss this like adults. Call me. Madison's message, Rachel, what the hell? You can't just cut off Mom and Dad. Call me right now. Mom's second message, Rachel, I understand you're upset, but you can't make rash financial decisions out of spite. Think about what you're doing. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the gym, came home, made dinner with Eric, and watched a movie. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored it. The next day, the messages got more desperate. Dad, Rachel, the mortgage payment is due on the 1st. We need to discuss this immediately. Mom, sweetie, please. We can talk about the wedding. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Madison, you're being so selfish right now. This is my wedding. You can't ruin it because you got your feelings hurt. I stared at Madison's message for a long time. My feelings hurt. As if being excluded from your own sister's wedding, being called a loser in front of her friends, being laughed at by your parents, as if all of that was just hurt feelings. As if it was something trivial, something I should just get over. More messages came throughout the day. Mom, Rachel, I'm getting worried. Please just call me back. We need to talk about this like adults. Dad, your mother is very upset. You know she has anxiety. This stress isn't good for her. I almost laughed at that one. Mom's anxiety had always been weaponized when they needed something from me. When I tried to talk about my own stress over the years, the pressure of working long hours while managing their finances, the exhaustion of being the family safety net, I'd been told I was young and resilient, that I could handle it. But now, suddenly, Mom's feelings mattered. Madison sent a voice message. I played it on speaker so Eric could hear. Rachel, okay, I'm sorry I called you a loser. It was just, you know how I get stressed about wedding stuff. But seriously, you're making this into a way bigger deal than it needs to be. Just because you're not in the wedding party doesn't mean you can sabotage Mom and Dad's finances. That's psycho behavior. Can you please transfer the money like normal? We can talk about everything else later. Not I'm sorry for excluding you. Not I'm sorry for humiliating you in public. Just sorry for calling me a name, and only because she needed me to keep paying. Eric looked at me. You okay? I keep waiting to feel guilty, I admitted. Shouldn't I feel bad? They're going to lose the house. Rachel, you've given them $140,000 over 3 years. You've gone without things you wanted. You've put your own life on hold. And they responded by treating you like you're not worth including in a family event. He paused. When does it become enough? When do you get to prioritize yourself? He was right, but knowing that didn't make it easier. I've been programmed since childhood to put my family first, to be the responsible one, to smooth things over and keep the peace. Going against that programming felt physically painful. Another message came in from Dad. Rachel, I need you to think very carefully about what you're doing. Your mother and I raised you, provided for you, gave you a good home. This is how you repay us? By abandoning us when we need you most? The manipulation was so blatant I almost admired it. They'd given me a home when I was a literal child who couldn't provide for myself, which was, their legal obligation as parents. And now they were holding that over me to extract more money. I finally responded to the group chat with a simple message: I won't be attending the wedding or providing any further financial support. I wish you all the best. Then I left the group chat entirely. My phone exploded. Individual texts came flooding in from all three of them. Mom sent a string of messages about how I was tearing the family apart. Dad sent increasingly angry texts about responsibility and obligation. Madison sent a paragraph about how she'd never ask me for help with anything ever again, as if I was the one who should be worried about burning that bridge. I sat at my kitchen table, phone buzzing nonstop beside me, and I did something I'd never done before. I blocked Madison's number. The silence that followed was immediate and startling. How does that feel? Eric asked. Scary, I admitted. And kind of amazing. Then I blocked both my parents' numbers. The silence became complete. For the first time in 3 years, my phone wasn't buzzing with demands or complaints or passive-aggressive guilt trips. Nobody was asking me to review their bank statements or help them figure out which bills to prioritize. Nobody needed me to be the adult in the family. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt untethered. My entire adult identity had been built around being the reliable daughter, the one who helped, the one who solved problems. Without that role, who was I? You're Rachel, Eric said, reading my mind like he always did. You're brilliant at your job. You're kind to strangers. You remember your friends' birthdays. You volunteer at the animal shelter. You're an amazing cook. You laugh at terrible puns. You cry during commercials with dogs in them. You're a million things that have nothing to do with being your family's ATM. I cried again, but this time it felt different. Cleaner somehow. Like I was crying out the last of the poison and making room for something new. Eric proposed to me that week. He got down on one knee in our tiny living room and said, "You deserve to be someone's priority, not their backup plan. Marry me, Rachel. Let me show you what it's like to be truly loved." I said yes through happy tears, and the ring he slipped on my finger was more beautiful than anything I'd ever owned. Later, he told me he'd been planning to propose for months but had been waiting for the right moment. The boutique incident had made him realize there was no perfect moment, just the certainty that he wanted to spend his life showing me what real family looked like. We spent the next few weeks in a strange sort of limbo. I kept expecting to feel guilty, kept waiting for the remorse to hit. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter. The constant low-level anxiety that had hummed in the background of my life for 3 years, the worry about whether I could afford to help them another month, the stress of managing their crises alongside my own responsibilities, all of it was just gone. My friend Sarah threw me an impromptu engagement party. 20 of my closest friends gathered at her apartment, celebrating me and Eric and our future together. The differences between this gathering and my family events were stark. People asked me questions and actually listened to the answers. They told stories about times I'd been there for them. They toasted to my happiness without making it about anyone else. To Rachel, Sarah said, raising her glass. The most loyal, generous, hardworking person I know. And to Eric, for being smart enough to lock her down. Everyone laughed and cheered, and I felt tears prick my eyes. This was what celebration was supposed to feel like. Not performing for someone else's validation, but being genuinely seen and appreciated. After the party, Sarah pulled me aside. "You seem different," she said. "Lighter." "I cut my family off," I told her. I'd been nervous to tell my friends what had happened, worried they'd judge me for it. But Sarah just hugged me tight. "Good," she said fiercely. "I've been watching them use you for years. I'm so proud of you for finally putting yourself first." We started planning our own small, intimate wedding for the fall. I didn't send invitations to my parents or Madison, obviously. Instead, I focused on the people who actually cared about me, my friends from work, Eric's wonderful family, Sarah, who'd always been more of a sister to me than Madison ever was. Eric's mother, Caroline, insisted on taking me wedding dress shopping. We went to a boutique, just the two of us, and she made the whole experience about what I wanted. What style made me feel beautiful? What colors looked best on me? She didn't try to push me toward any particular choice or make comments about fitting and aesthetic. When I found the dress, a simple, elegant A-line gown that made me feel like the best version of myself, Caroline cried happy tears. "You look absolutely beautiful," she said, and I could tell she meant it. There was no comparison to anyone else, no subtle criticism hidden in the compliment. Just genuine joy. In the dressing room, I broke down. Caroline held me while I sobbed, and I told her everything about the boutique incident, about Madison's cruelty, about feeling like I'd never been enough for my own family. "Listen to me," Caroline said, gripping my shoulders and looking me straight in the eye. "You are enough. You have always been enough. Their inability to see your worth says everything about them and nothing about you." She became the mother figure I'd always needed. She called to check on me. She sent me articles she thought I'd find interesting. She invited me to family dinners where I was welcomed, not tolerated. She asked about my work with genuine interest and remembered the details when I mentioned them again later. This was what maternal love was supposed to look like. And experiencing it made me realize just how much I'd been starved for it my entire life. But the story doesn't end there. About 6 weeks after I cut contact, I got an email from my father. I'd blocked calls and texts, but I hadn't thought to block email. The subject line read, "Emergency, please read." Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Rachel, I'm reaching out because we're in a serious situation. Without your payments, we've fallen behind on everything. The bank has started foreclosure proceedings on the house. Your mother's insurance lapsed, and she fell last week and broke her wrist. The emergency room bill is $8,000 that we don't have. Madison's wedding is in 6 weeks, and we don't have the money for the final venue payment. I know we hurt you. Madison knows she was cruel. Your mother and I should have stood up for you, and we didn't. We took you for granted because you've always been so strong and capable. We forgot that strength doesn't mean you don't have feelings. Please, can we talk? Just a phone call. We're desperate here, and I don't know what else to do. Love, Dad." I read the email 3 times. Each time, I felt different emotions: guilt, anger, sadness, and finally, resolve. I showed it to Eric. "What do you think I should do?" He was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" "Part of me wants to help," I admitted. "They're my parents, and they're struggling." "And the other part?" "The other part remembers standing in that boutique, being called a loser by my sister while my parents laughed." Eric took my hand. "You're not responsible for fixing their problems, Rachel. You were helping out of love, and they responded with cruelty. If you help them now, what message does that send? That they can treat you however they want, and you'll still come running?" He was right. I knew he was right. I responded to my father's email with one sentence: "I'm sorry you're going through this, but I'm no longer in a position to help. Best of luck with everything." Then I blocked his email address too. The wedding date came and went. I spent that day with Eric and his family at a lake house, swimming and grilling and laughing. His mother treated me with more warmth and respect in one afternoon than my own mother had shown me in years. I didn't think about Madison walking down the aisle or my parents watching their golden child get married. I didn't wonder if they thought of me or regretted what they'd done. Okay, that's a lie. I thought about it constantly. But I didn't reach out. 2 months later, I got a Facebook message from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Alicia had been invited to Madison's wedding, and she wanted me to know what had happened. "Rachel, I don't know if you care, but I thought you should know the truth. Madison's wedding was a disaster. The venue canceled 2 weeks before because your parents couldn't make the final payment. They scrambled and ended up having the ceremony in your parents' backyard. It rained. The caterer they hired last minute gave everyone food poisoning, half the guests were sick. Madison's dress got ruined in the mud. Tyler's parents were furious about the whole thing, and apparently there's been tension between the families since. But here's the thing that made me want to reach out. During the reception, such as it was, your mom gave a speech. She talked about family and support, and then she started crying and said that her other daughter Rachel had always been there for them, and she'd taken that for granted. She said she understood now what they'd lost. Your sister Madison apparently got upset and left her own reception. I don't know if this means anything to you, but I always liked you better than Madison anyway. You deserved so much better than how they treated you. I hope you're doing well." I read Alicia's message several times. Did I feel vindicated? A little. Did I feel sad? Absolutely. Did I want to reach out to my mother? Part of me did. The description of the wedding disaster played in my mind like a movie. I imagined Madison in her ruined dress, the photos she'd obsessed over looking nothing like she'd planned. I thought about Mom giving that speech, finally acknowledging what they'd lost, and Madison walking out of her own reception in anger. The irony wasn't lost on me. Madison had been so worried about me ruining her aesthetic, and in the end, karma had handled that without my involvement. Eric found me staring at my phone, reading Alicia's message for probably the 10th time. "What's wrong?" he asked. I showed him the message. He read it silently, then handed the phone back. "How do you feel?" "Honestly? I don't know. Part of me feels like maybe this is the universe's way of showing them they were wrong. But another part of me just feels empty. Like even this disaster, this evidence that they needed me more than they realized, doesn't change anything fundamental about our relationship. Do you want to reach out?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. About calling Mom and saying I'd seen what happened, that I was sorry her speech had caused more drama, that maybe we could talk. But then I remembered standing in that boutique. I remembered the cold look in Madison's eyes when she called me a loser. I remembered Dad's laugh, that casual cruelty dressed up as honesty. I remembered the group chat messages mocking me, the complete lack of acknowledgement that I'd been hurt by real betrayal. "No," I said finally. Her speech wasn't really an apology to me. It was a moment of self-pity in front of wedding guests. If she really wanted to apologize, she knows how to reach me. Oh wait, she can't, because I blocked her. And there's a reason I did that. Eric nodded, understanding without me having to explain further. I sent a brief reply to Alicia, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you thinking of me. I hope you didn't get food poisoning. She responded almost immediately, thankfully I left early. But Rachel, for what it's worth, everyone there was talking about how weird it was that you weren't at your own sister's wedding. A few people asked where you were. I think your parents realized too late that your absence was more noticeable than your presence ever would have been. There was something profound in that observation. They'd excluded me to maintain some perfect aesthetic, but my absence had created questions, had made people wonder. I'd become more visible by not being there than I ever had been by fading into the background. The next few weeks brought an unexpected peace. Without the constant drain of my family's needs and drama, I found myself with time and energy I'd forgotten I could have. Eric and I took weekend trips. I started going to a yoga class I'd always been too tired to attend. I read books for pleasure instead of falling asleep the moment I sat down. I called friends just to chat, not because I was having a crisis. My therapist, Dr. Matthews, said I was finally experiencing what healthy boundaries felt like. You've spent so long being hypervigilant about other people's needs that you forgot to tune into your own, she explained during one of our sessions. This isn't selfishness. This is self-preservation. Because here's what I'd learned over those months of silence, my worth wasn't dependent on how useful I was to my family. I wasn't obligated to set myself on fire to keep them warm. And most importantly, I deserved to be loved and valued, not just tolerated and used. Eric and I got married in October in a small ceremony at a vineyard. 50 of our closest friends and family attended, his family, not mine. Sarah was my maid of honor. The day was perfect, full of love and laughter and people who genuinely cared about us. Nobody called me a loser. Nobody told me I didn't fit the aesthetic. Nobody laughed in my face. As I danced with my new husband under string lights and stars, I realized I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn my family's love through sacrifice and service. But real love, the kind Eric showed me, the kind his family showed me, the kind my real friends showed me, doesn't require you to diminish yourself. It celebrates you as you are. I heard through the grapevine that my parents eventually lost the house. They moved into a small apartment and both had to get part-time jobs to make ends meet. Madison and Tyler moved to another state, and from what I understand, she still barely speaks to our parents because she blames them for ruining her wedding. I don't take joy in their struggles. Honestly, I don't feel much of anything anymore when I think about them. That's what happens when you go no contact with toxic family members. Eventually, they become just people you used to know. The hurt fades, leaving behind a neutral distance. My therapist says I made the right choice. She says setting boundaries, even painful ones, is an act of self-love. She says I've broken a cycle of people-pleasing and self-sacrifice that probably went back generations in my family. Eric and I just bought our first house. It's a beautiful 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood with good schools for the kids we're planning to have someday. We could afford it because I wasn't sending $4,000 a month into a black hole of ungratefulness. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been invited to that wedding. If Madison had hugged me at the boutique and asked me to be her maid of honor, would I still be bleeding myself dry for a family that saw me as an ATM? Probably. So in a twisted way, maybe I should thank her. Thank her for being cruel enough to wake me up. Thank her for saying out loud what they'd all apparently been thinking, that I wasn't important, that I didn't fit in, that I was just the loser sister who paid the bills. She freed me with her cruelty. I know some people will read this and think I should have forgiven them. That family is family, and everyone makes mistakes. But here's the thing those people don't understand, I had forgiven them 1,000 times before that day. Every time I was overlooked, every gift-giving occasion where I was clearly an afterthought, every family gathering where Madison was the star and I was the stagehand, I forgave all of it. But forgiveness doesn't mean you keep letting people hurt you. It doesn't mean you continue participating in your own diminishment. Sometimes forgiveness looks like letting go and walking away. Do I miss having a family? Sometimes. Holidays can be lonely, even with Eric's family including me in everything. There are moments when I see a mother and daughter shopping together and feel a pang of loss. There are times I want to call my mom and tell her about something funny that happened at work, and then I remember that I can't. But I don't miss the anxiety of never being good enough. I don't miss the financial stress of supporting 3 other adults while neglecting my own needs. I don't miss the feeling of being invisible in my own family. I'm finally building a life where I'm the priority. Where my voice matters. Where I'm not just the reliable, responsible, invisible daughter who exists to solve everyone else's problems. And that's worth more than any family connection. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my mother, sent to my old address and forwarded by the post office. I could have thrown it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. Dear Rachel, it began. I know I don't have the right to ask anything of you anymore, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I took advantage of your generous heart, and I let your sister treat you terribly because it was easier than admitting that I've been doing the same thing for years. You were always the strong one, the capable one, and somewhere along the way, I started thinking that meant you didn't need the same love and attention I gave Madison. I thought you were fine on your own. I was wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me or to let me back into your life. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You were the daughter who showed up, who sacrificed, who loved us even when we didn't deserve it. And we threw that away for something as shallow as a wedding photo. I hope you're happy, sweetheart. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Love, Mom. I read the letter twice, and then I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have a conversation about rebuilding some kind of relationship. But not today. Maybe not ever. Because I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to let go. My name is Rachel. I'm 29 years old now. I have a husband who adores me, a beautiful home, a career I'm proud of, and friends who value me. I'm no longer the invisible daughter who paid the bills and accepted the crumbs of affection thrown my way. I'm enough exactly as I am. And if that makes me a loser in my sister's eyes, then I'll wear that label proudly. Because I'd rather be a loser who respects herself than a winner who accepts mistreatment. That's my story. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. I know it's long, but I needed to get it all out. To anyone else out there dealing with toxic family dynamics, you're not obligated to keep sacrificing yourself on the altar of family loyalty. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your financial security matters. Your peace matters. Sometimes the family you build is better than the family you're born into. And sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do.